Hey, this is Matt once again. What about to the video? And I apologize if I clear my throat a lot. Is a bit under the weather, allergies really. So sorry about that. But Corey wanted me to do a review of this 4K Blu-ray that he sent me of Ticks, which is from Vinegar Syndrome. I know because it's camcorder, it's going to be a bit of a fuzzy image on this. I'll make sure to put the cover over here. Love the cover. I love the artwork. It's beautiful artwork. Very sturdy, hard box that it's carried in. So you have this beautiful new artwork. And on the back, you got Clint Howard. It is small parts saying one of his lines in the movie, "I'm infested." So you slide it out. You get the original VHS cover, which a lot of people saw this movie and remember this cover, with tips on the flip side. Apparently I'm allergic to ticks. Thankfully I never had to have a tick on me. I knew better. Don't go camping out in the woods. Just not my forte. But this has a Blu-ray 4K combo pack, as you can see here. Now, the 4K pretty much just has the two commentaries and the movie. The actual features, like the making of, is on the Blu-ray disc. I find that interesting because sometimes it's flipped. Like, there are releases like Stripes. That's the 4K of Stripes. The new features are on the 4K disc. I believe Hard Target as well, which someone had sent me a Blu-ray copy of it, but there's no features on it, so one day I'll have to get the Hard Target 4K to see the new features, but they're not on the Blu-ray, they're on, I guess they're on the 4K. So I guess depending on which company they pick and choose where they put the new features. Again, some put it on the 4K disc, some like this actually put it on the Blu-ray. Now, this has the film on it as well. So if you don't own the film and you did not pick up the previous Olive Films Blu-ray, you can pick this up and you get the film looking the best it's ever looked on the Blu-ray, as well as the 4K. And again, the features, interviews, and the two commentaries are on the Blu-ray as well. So there is that, which is pretty cool. Now the film itself, like I said, it looks the best it's ever looked. 35mm, cleaned up into 4K. I think even the Blu-ray looks, I think, even better than the Olive Films Blu-ray. Looks a bit more lush in picture quality. The commentaries, they carry over the old one with Tony Randall, the director, and Clint Howard, the actor, which is cool because that's a fun commentary. And then they have a new one hosted by Joe Bedos, I believe the director of VFW. So he's a fan of the film. And he talks to two of the effects guys. In fact, one of them, Doug Beswick, he actually came up with the story of this back in the 70s. And that it got made at this time. And someone rewrote the film, but he got to be on as the head effects guy. So, I mean, the comedy is more towards effects, but, you know, some nice little stories here and there. Yeah, not a bad commentary. If I just stop clearing my throat. These damn allergies. Now, the three-part making of, there's a first part that's 10 minutes, a second part that's 15 minutes, and another third part, which is another 15 minutes. So it's about 40 minutes total. You have the visual effects artist, Doug Beswick, who came up with the original story of the film. You have screenwriter Brent Friedman. You got executive producer Brian Yuzna. You got director Tony Randall, who had done Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, and who had worked with Roger Corman before this. You also have the editor, Leslie Rosenthal, actress Amy Dolans, actress Rosalind Allen. You have the composer. Sadly, you don't get much of the other actors. Like, I know he's on the commentary, but it would have been nice to see a new interview with Clint Howard. Seth Green, I mean, it would have been nice to see. I'm a bit surprised he's not on the interviews, because it seems like he's usually into this weird, you know, not weird, but the, you know, B-movie stuff with all the material he does on Robot Chicken and He was interviewed on the Stephen King's It documentary, the 1990 one, and he seems like he's free to talk about his film. Seems like a nice guy, so I don't know if he was busy or if he just said no or what the deal was, but that would have been nice to see Seth Green on here. I think that would have been a big plus. Alfonso Ribeiro would never, but that, I mean, that would have been a fun interview as well, but I guess nah. So that's disappointing. I mean, the overall features were fine. There's some pretty interesting info, especially in the first part, because it's the how it started, the production, and then sort of the third part is the reshoots and the release of the film. It was fun, but I don't know what it is. Maybe with a lot of features and interviews and making of, it feels like a lot of stuff you've heard before in a way. Again, sorry about all the coughing. But it feels like, okay, we've done the, it was a fun shoot, or it became a cult following, or this is a time before CGI, or even Brian Yuzna goes, hey, I think it's time for a remake. I mean, this feels like stuff I've heard multiple times in other making of for other movies. So maybe because kind of maybe a little less gun-ho on special features, or maybe I'm expecting too much. And it's like, oh, go further with that one. Go further with that info. Dig deeper in that part. And that's the thing. Sometimes I wish they would go further on certain stuff. Like the beginning of it, I liked. The beginning of it, which I guess I'm giving away the best parts. So if you don't want the best parts given away, spoiler alert. But I liked hearing about Dud Beswick. He had this idea in 1971 during a camping trip. And the original idea was like that movie Bug from back in the day in the 70s. And it was an earthquake. And apparently it's about two couples that go out into the woods. For years he tried to get it made. He was working on the effects for this film called Sinjanor. And a producer came up and said, do you have any ideas? Any scripts? Dud gave this guy the script. He said, we'll make it. I would like to get it rewritten though. They hired this guy, Brent Friedman, who rewrote it. They changed the couples to these inner city kids. Brian Yuzna and Tony Randall became attached. Brian Yuzna kind of pushed for more of the outlandish, like, let's go crazier with it. While Tony Randall wanted to deal more with the inner city kids and how they interact with each other. Like, that stuff was interesting. Apparently the location, or at least one of the primary locations, was where they shot the opening of the Andy Griffith Show. You know, the opening with Andy and Opie Taylor, Ron Howard, with the fishing poles and the famous whistle theme song. That whole opening, this is like the same or similar location. Amy Dolan's, I mean, pretty much all I got out of her was that it was fun working with the cast, working with Seth Green, working with Tony Randall. Rosalind Allen, pretty much, oh, it seems like a fun idea. Probably the best bit is that when she first got the call, she thought the movie was called Tits. It's like, what, you want me to do a film called Tits? No, Ticks. Oh, okay. So that was probably the best bit of her part in it. I do like that all the interviews intermixed. It's not, here's an interview with this person for 5 minutes. Here's an interview with this person for 5 minutes. I like that it's all interconnected as a documentary. Again, they separate into 3 parts. I thought the third part of it, they could have delved deeper into. And could have been longer. And what I mean by that is, like, the second part ends with, oh, we shot the film in 20-some days, we showed it to the financier, and they hated it. And then when the third part begins, Tony Randall's like, oh yeah, the guy wanted to fire, like, replace everybody, including me. But I wish he delved deeper as to those negotiations, those talks. What specifically was it the financier didn't like? What did he not like? What was there to begin with? I know that everything with Clint Howard was additional photography. They went back and they shot 4 days more on the film. And again, they added everything with Clint Howard. Probably because Clint Howard knew Brian Yuzna. Because Brian Yuzna had directed Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, had produced Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, which Clint Howard had a part in it. So I'm sure Brian Yuzna got Clint Howard, but I wish they delved more into how that came about. Like, Brian Yuzna maybe talk about. Tell me more what the original version was. Because if you take out the Clint, like, the movie itself is short. It's an hour and 27 minutes. If you take out the Clint Howard stuff, it'd be under 80 minutes. That'd be super short. So, what stuff was there stuff cut out? Like, the only bit they talk about is the original opening was a farmer spraying these marijuana plants with a chemical, and all that's not as good of an opening. So then Tony Randall, you have that kind of Rube Goldberg of all the chemicals, all the stuff, the steam pumps and stuff to make this chemical. That opening title sequence, that was during the 4 days. Clint Howard stuff was all during the 4 days. But he said he shot that all in 1 day. I remember on the Clint Howard commentary. So, what was the other 3 days? Like, what specifically was the 3 days? If Clint Howard's stuff was shot in 1 day, what was the other 3 days? I know stuff was added with the giant tick. But again, I wish there was I wish this was done a bit better, a bit more of a flow to it. Was there always a giant tick? But then I know TMB came in after the fact to add in Alfonso. Okay, spoiler for who haven't seen the film. Where Alfonso Ribeiro opens up and his body splits, and the giant tick legs are coming out of the knees and coming out of the hands. That was not in the original version. That was all added in. So again, the body opening up and the stuff. So that stuff was added in those 4 days. So trying to picture what was it during the original version? What other ideas or what other scenes were shot or not shot or added? Like I said, I wish they could have delved more into that. Did the financier just say it was boring? Did he say, give me Clint Howard? Did he say, hey, Brian Yuzna, you do something about it? I wish they delved more into that. So I think that could have been a bit more, because that would be the most interesting part of this. That's the most drama. That's the most intricate stuff. What did Tony Randall think about it? Because on the effects commentary, one of the effects guys mentions there's a shot where Tony Randall. One of the effects guys says Tony Randall was not there when Clint Howard shot his scenes. He said, no, he wasn't there. It was another guy. I mean, Tony Randall gave notes, but Tony Randall was not there. But I only know that because I listened to the effects guy's commentary. Tony Randall doesn't say that. So that's what I mean, delve more into that, and I wish that could have been flourished more. Was there a large tick in the first version? If what did we see Alfonso's body move and then it was a cutaway? Or did Alfonso die another way? That's what I mean. These are answers I would love to hear. I wish there was a bit more questioning of that throughout the material. They told a little bit about the release. They were the Dud Beswick talks about how they showed it to a crowd. The crowd enjoyed it. The screenwriter talks about how the critics were polarizing. Some loved it, some hated it. Brian Yuzna's says, I think it's time we do a remake. Although he seemed pretty complimentary on this film as well. Pretty much the only other thing is that the original, they tried to change the title to Infested, but Brian Yuzna is glad that they went back to Ticks and they had this cover. Like, you have Amy Dolenz. Why don't you ask her about this cover? Like, if that's Amy Dolenz, and you're interviewing Amy Dolenz, how come you don't ask her about this? Like, was this a separate shoot? How was that day like? How did you feel looking at the cover? Like, why didn't you ask about that? And again, like, with that stuff, Seth Green being interviewed, like, I think there's stuff that could have been made this better in terms of the making of material. Like I say, it was fun to watch and listen to. I don't know if it's stuff I would watch over and over again. Like I said, Rosalind Allen, pretty much other than that funny story about she thought the movie was called Tits at first. Yeah. It was nice to see her talk about the film. Amy Dolenz, again, oh, it was fun and everybody was cool. Didn't find a lot of info. I mean, like, what about her day with Clint Howard? Because I think she's one of the only, she's like the only actress that shares a scene with Clint Howard. Since this stuff was at, why don't we ask her about that? How's that scene like? Ask the actors about the 4 days of reshoots. And really delve into it. I mean, I don't know if it's just like a sore point or I don't know. I think a lot more could have been done with that. But with that said, I do think the features could have been a bit better. And, I mean, there's no other features. There's the 2 commentaries and there's that making of, but there's no location, look. There's no making of material back in the day, nothing in between, no separate little featurettes. It's just that and that alone. Hey. I mean, if you think about it, it's still more features than you get out of Arachnophobia. Like, Arachnophobia is a damn good movie, and that has nothing but a 4-minute feature for back in the day. Hell, it took till the Blu-ray to get the spider back on the poster, so... Yeah, Arachnophobia, this is given much better treatment on home video than Arachnophobia. Go figure. But I do like this film. I think it's a fun movie. I do think its pacing is a bit of an issue in the first half. But I like a lot of the actors. I think Seth Green does a pretty decent job. Probably the first time he got to be the lead of a movie. That's why I'm surprised he wouldn't be willing to talk about this film. Because I don't know if he was ever... I know he was in movies. He was in Stephen King's It from 1990, among others. But I don't know if he had ever been a lead of a film before this. But like I say, if you like the film, you want to see it in the best picture quality. And again, I like the... Vinegar Syndrome at least has some good production value in terms of the physicality of it. The box, everything. So... It doesn't feel flimsy. At least there are features on it. At least they carried over the old counter. At least the picture quality is much better. I didn't even think the Olive Films was that bad, but this is definitely an improvement. And overall, it's still nice to see. Because I do think it's a fun B movie of that time. I hope, what was that? Aberration from 1997. I hope that gets a physical release on DVD. Other than an overseas that I don't even know if it's in print anymore, but it was like a German or something. I hope Aberration from 97 gets a physical release. I hope, other stuff. But with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. Thanks once again, Corey. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.